century came along, the water got the best of the construction, and they would often, you'd have to walk on planks in order to get across the water into these buildings. Gondolas everywhere, cats. I mean, both of us, still, all of us, when we talk about it, still remember there were cats everywhere. I think they were just good fishing for the cats and good fish baits, and they were, so you couldn't even get a room without being bothered by cats. And I like cats. I mean, it was a gorgeous town. I bought my mother a little glass thing, the ornament at that time, and carried around to take back to her, which she loved and she kept through her life. But again, here's this whole different world of living. I mean, their construction is different than Rome. Their trade patterns are different. I say trade patterns, that's the term I use now. Then I didn't understand what the hell it was. But people were coming and going in a much different type of environment. We talked to some people that had lived there for like 15 generations. And that's where they were always going to live. They're probably still there. And that doesn't happen. That America wasn't around long enough for that to happen. The types of thoughts, and I was asking about, do you own a home? Well, home ownership is different than here. You don't get a 30-year mortgage or anything. I mean, you just about have to inherit one. You can work your whole life and not own a home in some of these older places like Genoa and Venice and those types. And when you did, it wasn't as if it was yours. They looked at it as kind of passing it on, that in fact they were going to give it to their kids, that it was a heritage and an asset that had to be preserved, that they were really kind of renting it or using it for during that time period. I never thought of housing quite like that. And the construction that they built, the things that they put up, were up for hundreds and hundreds of years. Nothing where I'd come from, where America was put up to last hundreds and hundreds of years. And the difference was, as we're going through them, and we're talking about it all the time. Fortunately, the other guys I was with were interested in life in every sense too. Why do they build for hundreds of years and we build for 20 or something like that? Well, the bottom line of it was, we couldn't afford to build for 100 years. You can build here for 100 years, but it costs several times what it costs to build for 20 or 50 years, and nobody wanted to spend that money. So we're going to put up wooden buildings with brick facades. They put up giant boulders that are put together with great mortar, and they're almost so tight anyway that they stand without anything. They're going to stand for 1,000 years. Ours are all being torn down as we go along, unless we have preservation, and that was preservation efforts here. Very few things that we had seen, that I had seen, were going to last that long at all. It just gave a permanence to the world that I hadn't experienced before, that this is you can do it this way, and it has advantages, but you change your lifestyle if you do this too. You're literally looking at generations committed to it, as opposed to where you're going to live while you raise the kids. Type of that. I wouldn't think in those terms, because I wasn't thinking about raising kids or anything. But where you're going to stay for a little while. And having come from a mobile home, it was a breathtaking experience. After we'd gone to Rome, after we'd gone to Paris, we slipped over to London and then came down through. Let me talk about London for a second. That was a piece of American history that was absolutely breathtaking to show up in London. And I say that because I knew, of course, we have this connection. We've been taught about the Revolution. We've been taught about English attributes to our Constitution, to our Bill of Rights, all those types of battles. So I wanted to go see Parliament. You hear about Parliament. Let's go see it. And you had to go over and queue up. I didn't even know what the word queue meant. I said, what queue? What the hell are you talking about? You got to get in line, buddy. And so we got in the back of this line, and in we go. It happens to be kind of we had room to watch, and it was kind of a busy day. And they stood up and they insulted each other in the most polite terms I had ever heard the English language used. The honorable gentleman from Westminster has just ruined the reputation of the country, and it went on down. and to listen to them debate the intricacies that they covered these topics, and you could quickly pick up what they were talking about the topic. I stayed the whole day, and I went back another time too, just out of breathtaking. How does this stuff? How do they govern? It was near a big bridge too. It was a very picturesque, and Big Ben was out there. But suddenly I realized there's who makes these rules? Some of it happens in places like that. That they're thinking about the large groups of people. I mean, I never figured out how you even thought about large groups and got them to do things. But the whole debate, and they were having a discussion about Ireland in those days. And one of my grandfather came over from Roscommon County in Ireland, and there was much more bitterness between the Irish and the English than I ever understood, and it was still going on to that day. Those Irish, they just aren't pulling their weight, and the only part of Ireland they controlled was the northern part, the Protestant part, and they were having a bit of a debate. So I had to go ask people about it. We were staying in a rooming house, again, very, very cheaply, but there were a number of students around, and so we strike up conversations. And so I was asking about the Irish question to a British fellow about my age, and we become friends and talking. And he explained to me, he said, "Oh yeah, the history is just horrible. I mean, Oliver, what was his? Cromwell, had just demolished them." I said, "Well, what do you mean demolished?" He says, "He went over and he damn near enslaved them." I said, "Oh, okay." And they've still been mad about it ever since. And the only thing left is the northern provinces. And I said, "Well, how do your elections work?" And he said, "Well, they're a lot like yours." And I said, "Well, I was reading about rotten boroughs and things where they're kind of all." He says, "God damn, you Americans, quit reading our history. You weren't even supposed to know that stuff." I said, "Well, the only reason I know it is my history teacher forced me to read it. It wasn't I had a great history teacher. His name was Bewley, who actually wrote one of the Northwest Passage. So I was a little prepared for it. And we went through the history for several days with of different parts of why London was better in this part than that. It was because they had better consulars. They had better office holders. Teaching me another lesson. Okay, it's you got to stay involved to know these things. The other thing that I most remember that was most fun, almost of the whole trip, were the theater shows in London. I had never really been to theater. There had been little things at the Palace Theater in Fort Wayne and Civic Theater. Folks took me to that once. The theater in London was exquisite. I mean, it was funny, it was bright, it was vivacious, it was thoughtful. I think I went to 7 plays. Now, we went to the cheapest, earliest matinees. I mean, we were talking about getting there at 9 in the morning and being done at 11. It wasn't going out a big night on the town. But I think I went to 7 or 8 of those in the time we were there, just for sheer laughter, just to see a new form of art that I really hadn't ever appreciated, and the comedic language that they used was hilarious with the English twang or English accent. Yeah, accent's a good word, but it was even more than that somehow. I mean, it was a real body language too. And we all went just as long as we could. Went to the Tate Museum. It was beautiful. There was an English museum, a British museum in London too. The Churchill monuments had more pigeons per square foot than I'd ever seen. I didn't realize monuments attracted pigeons in that amount. And they had these signs out, "Don't feed the pigeons," and the kids that were feeding the pigeons were leaning on the signs. So I knew this wasn't going to change. They were just pigeons, but it was very British. I mean, pigeons and Churchill and Lord Nelson and big monuments to wars long ago fought. One of them having to do with Napoleon, I think, down there. it was